Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Again, this is Entrepreneur with Jillian Sidoti and myself, Nate Dodson. And, we're spending the month really talking about marketing. And we're going to get into kind of the meat and potatoes of marketing. But Jillian, I've got a big question for you.
Yeah, I got a big
Yeah,
answer.
I, I just got one of these Mexican Cokes.
Is that a Mexican Coke? When you held it up, I was like, that looks like a Mexican Coke.
Oh, completely. Which is, it's just so much better than the Cokes that are here. You're in Puerto Rico. Do they have Mexican Coke or do they have US Coke?
I've never seen Mexican Coke, so I don't think they have it here, but I'll be on the lookout for it. What is it? A reticular activation has been unlocked regarding Mexican Coke. So now everywhere I look, I'm gonna be noticing Mexican Cokes.
Do you have the Mexican
So we'll
Coke?
see. Yes, we'll see if it. What do you think makes it better, Nate?
Oh, it's really simple. It doesn't have the high fructose corn syrup. It has sugar cane.
Wow. So regular
100%.
Coke has high, I guess that makes sense. It has high fructose corn syrup. Okay, yeah.
But not the Mexican Coke. But the reason why I brought it up is not just because it's awesome. I Coca-Cola literally spends billions and billions of dollars a year marketing, but it's one of the most well-known brands in the world.
Yeah, so why are they marketing?
What is the purpose of their marketing?
Right.
And it's the same thing that we talk about on a really regular basis. It's not just making that one-time splash. Because you know what? You throw an ad out there and then people are going to forget it. It is all
Yeah.
about that constant reminder of who you are, what you're doing. Always comes back to these newsletters and
Yeah.
the drip campaigns. So I just want to throw that out there because I was just talking to somebody last week and they're like, the question is always, from the securities, from the crowdfunding lawyer standpoint, how are you marketing? What are you doing? And the answer is generally like, well, find investors online, or I've got friends and family. But it's like you can't just throw a post up there on Facebook. You have to do it repeatedly,
Oh, it's
creating that
it's it's
awareness.
something, yeah, it's something I've always said, which is when I was practicing law, I said it, and I'll say it now. And I'll say it now in the context of any type of whatever you want to do. You have to have a clear and consistent marketing message. When I was in college back in 1990 something, I remember
As
taking a
we age
marketing
ourselves.
class. I remember taking a marketing class. I still remember this marketing class. And I remember back in the late 90s, we'll go with.
The early 2000s.
Right. No, unfortunately, it was 96 to 2000, I'll be honest. Back then, when I was in college, I took this marketing class, and this goes back to that clear and consistent marketing message. Back then, you needed to get your message out to a consumer 7 times before they were going to act. 7 times. So if we think about that, and this is back before the internet, it was, as big as it is now, before, we were inundated with cell phones and distractions and all these other things, 7 times between around that time of the late 90s. What is it now? How many times do you have to get your marketing message out there now in order for people to hear it? And the protest I always get from clients is, well, I don't want to annoy people on social media with talking about this so much. So there's two things I say to that. One, you have to reformat how you're saying things to your potential customers or to your potential investors. And we can get to that at a different time. But the second thing I say to that is the Dr. Seuss quote, Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. So at the end of the day, get your message out there consistently and clearly as much as possible, and make sure you're providing some value to your potential investors, to your potential customers, prior to asking them to act, before your call to action. But also remember the call to action.
And I love that you brought up Dr. Seuss, and to kind of bring us back to why we're here today and to tie it all together. Doing presentations, creating webinars, getting your message out there is so unbelievably important. Why and today we're going to dive into that. We've got somebody that you've worked with a long time, Sue. I'm going to butcher your last name. Hough? Sorry, Sue.
Yeah.
But before, and I'll let you do the introduction to her, but the reason why I brought up, or you brought up the wonderful Dr. Seuss, he actually has one of the best sales trainers ever.
Really?
Green Eggs and Ham. I do not like them, Sam. I do not like them. Do not like them. And the entire point of the book is like, here's an objection. Overcome the objection. Try again. I do not like them this way, that way, or the other. Another objection. What if I try this? And just the consistency of keep going at it and don't take no for an answer. It is so important for sales as well as marketing. So I'm going to hang out with that in mind and let you do your introduction as well as.
So yes, everybody, I would love to welcome my close friend, Sue Hough. Well, we've become close friends because of the presentation you're about to see. Sue came to an investor presentation night for actually for our friend Cornelius Cannon, and Sue came. She introduced her concept that you're going to see here shortly for Moody Moon Ridge, which is a ground up construction project in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. And in doing that, she gave this presentation that I felt hit all of the points of a good investor presentation. And I realized that this presentation could be, we could dissect this presentation for you today, and you could see what that formula looks like. So how this is going to work is Sue's going to start giving the presentation, and I'm going to be the annoying woman who interrupts Sue and explains why this is a good presentation. So hopefully you find this, and this is not, we're not looking for investors, or Sue's not looking for investors right now. If you are interested in working with Sue in the future, you can reach out to her after the presentation here, or sometime in the future. However, I will say this: these properties are for sale. So if you're interested in an investment property in the Smoky Mountains, I visited them. I mean, I invested. So big disclaimer: I'm an investor. I'm very pleased with my investment. We have not. I straight up honest with you. We have not sold any homes yet. We built one home. It's done. It's gorgeous. I've seen it. It's beautiful. And then we have another home that's almost done. And each home, with the exception of one, is on a 5-acre plus lot. So huge lots. But I'm going to let Sue tell you. I'm selling the property, and that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be letting Sue present, and I'll tell you about it.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Jillian. Oh, sorry. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for the pitch for Moody Moon Ridge. I appreciate it very much. And we're beginning massive marketing to sell these beautiful homes. So thank you. Let me know. Are you ready for me just to start the presentation?
Go for it. Just go for it. Yep.
So this is the presentation that I put on prior to acquiring the land and development. So here we go. Moody Moon Ridge is a unique residential development. We're located in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. It is a 117-acre beautiful piece of land, and it's designed to connect people with nature in the Smoky Mountains. The development will offer 25 secluded homes, 8 townhomes, productive workspaces, and a wellness facility, along with pool, pickleball court, shuffleball courts, and mountain springs, along with endless trails. We will take every advantage to create connection between individuals, families, loved ones, and connecting with nature. That is the purpose of Moody Moon Ridge. We are a unique community. One of the reasons I also picked the location that I did is because of the unique opportunities we have to give contribution back. The Cosby school districts are in need. They're a very small rural area. They are in need of assistance for additional programs, after-school programs, and so forth. So it is the commitment of Moody Moon Ridge to donate 10% of its profits back into the Cosby school districts to provide these children in rural areas opportunities that they most likely would have never seen otherwise. So I'm very proud to do that.
I'm going to stop right there. One thing I will say about this, I loved this portion of it. I love the fact that Sue was going to give back, and I found it unusual and unique and interesting. And people might disagree. As a matter of fact, some people who saw the presentation did disagree with me that she put this right up front and discussed it right away. But I actually thought it made it very unique because we're doing one of the reasons why we're doing this. And see what Sue is doing, she did this in the first slide and she's doing this in the second slide, and she's getting to that why right away. You're going to see this pattern, and I will wrap up what the pattern is at the end of the presentation. But she started off with a why of like, we're bringing people and nature together in the Smoky Mountains, and then the contribution. Very unique way to start off the presentation while still giving you that why. Continue.
Before you do, let me just kind of jump out there and agree with you there. One of the most important things for marketing anything nowadays is the why. People are looking for something beyond just the, hey, it's a great deal, it's a great opportunity. Why are you doing this for the betterment beyond just making a buck? Because that's a great motivator, but it only gets you so far. Why really goes beyond that. So I wanted to agree with you and just really emphasize the why.
Thank you. I really believe that I needed to make Moody Moon Ridge much bigger than myself and its investors. And I believe in working with and helping kids. So very strongly about that. All right, next slide. Why Moody Moon Ridge is fantastic. At the time, this was, and it's still the case, quality homes are very scarce in East Tennessee. I am bringing together groups of, just for reference, I've been a builder in the Chicago area for over 20 years. So a lot of the skills from the Chicago area, a lot of my tradesmen, skilled tradesmen, as a matter of fact, are actually working down there in Tennessee with me. And that was the plan at the time. I'm providing workspaces to help reduce stress and improve productivity in the Smoky Mountains, investing deeply in our planet's future. Moody Moon Ridge does not allow single-use water bottles. Also incorporating a couple of other things in the future with electric charging stations and just being kind to nature. So for every tree we take down, I'm planting a new one. It is a perfect time. Housing inventory in the area is at an all-time low. The rental prices are steadily rising, and more people are moving to Tennessee than in recent years by large percentages. The investment opportunity is an anticipated 26% IRR, capital returned in less than 24 months with 9% preferred return, and the project life is 4 to 5 years with quarterly distributions additional stakeholders, distributions at the sale of the development. One of the greatest benefits of the Moody Moon Ridge itself is the property is unrestricted, and it is in a small rural community adjacent to the Gatlinburg Sevierville area, and they do not require permits. So we are ready to get up and go and start construction.
So I'm going to stop you right there for a second. Again, we're continuing at the why, but in that why, Sue transitioned to what I call is a what as well. She told you why we're doing this and what she's all about. She mentioned that she's had experience as a general contractor, and what we're going to do is we're going to build in a place, and this was a real selling point for me. Property is unrestricted and does not require building permits to get up and go. So I will tell you this, that was huge for me. That last sentence there was absolutely huge for me because I came from California. I knew what it took to get a building permit. And the fact that we could do, ground up construction with no building permits was like huge to me. I also knew how popular Tennessee was. I knew a lot of flight from California into Tennessee. So I knew why aligned with what I was witnessing in my own life. And then also how popular the Smoky Mountains were becoming. With all of that being said, I do want to put a disclaimer in here. One thing we didn't anticipate, just to give you the good, bad, and the ugly, and to be completely transparent, is we did not have capital returned in less than 24 months. We had tons of construction delays, not because of the permitting process, and not even so much because of supply chain, but because quality contractors within the area. And Sue was able to mitigate that, but what she had to end up doing was bring in her own contractors from Chicago. So that was not something we anticipated, and therefore we're like way behind schedule. But we're still going to be okay. Actually, do you want to talk to that a little bit, Sue?
Before you do, I wanted to pipe in a little bit because this is at least something that I would change in this. Is the discussion of returns and structure. Maybe it's a lot more down the road, but it's minimal here. It's barely touched on, but at the same time, it needs, in my opinion, more in terms of, you make a claim of a 20%, 26% IRR. Is that the highest range? Is there a high, middle, low? What are your assumptions? A lot of these things, in terms of the structure, the anticipated returns, having both the CYA and a level of explanation within the pitch deck itself, I think is so unbelievably important. Really, it's not just for the marketing and the sales side. It is the CYA of don't overpromise and underdeliver.
It's not just that, Nate, but I couldn't agree with you more. And one thing I always tell people is like your returns. And I don't remember, Sue, if you had this in the beginning. Maybe I was just so enamored with the fact that there was no required building permits. But I seem to remember you not having the returns up front, because one thing I usually recommend is that people make their returns the grand reveal. Like, we can do all these things. Here's what's going to happen. Here are our risk points. Here's what we're looking at. And the grand reveal being, now here's what's in it for you. So the pattern we're doing, and I'm going to reveal a little more of the pattern, is a why. Why are we going to do this? Why are we going to do this? Why are we going to do this? And the why is never really the returns. That is a what if you could make 26% return on investment. So the pattern is, and you're going to hear me say this so many times, why, what, how. You're going to repeat that pattern. Why, what, how, why, what, how, what if, and then what, and then that last what after the what if is their call to the call to action, the action you want the potential investor or the potential buyer, because we don't want to just limit this to investors. We want to also talk about buyers. So why, what, how, what if? So what if you could join us in this journey to building ground up construction in the Smoky Mountains and get a 9% preferred return and an anticipated 26% IRR. Well, if that sounds good to you, then this is what you want to do. So yes, I agree. I completely agree with Nate. And with that, Sue, talk about some of the challenges you had in getting this done.
A couple of the challenges that we've had is right at the time I bought the land, which was May of 2022, interest rates were changing. And so it then became, we're in a smaller area, we're in a smaller rural area, and it took much longer to secure the construction capital. That was the biggest hurdle, along with, although that has been secured. So along with working tradespeople, I can just laugh about it now. So that's a good thing. I've had to pull in more trades people from the Chicago area than I had originally anticipated. But the Chicago area, from a construction standpoint, is much slower than anybody anticipated. So most of the quality guys are pretty happy about, coming on down. As a matter of fact, my hardwood floor guys are driving down there right now to get the flooring in the last house. They're going to start work tomorrow morning. Yes. That was it. It was building restrictions. I mean, there aren't any, so that was absolutely wonderful. That was fabulous. The land that I'm on, I haven't had any neighbors really complain about it. It's been, I will be very honest, working in the mountains, I always thought working in Chicago was tough, and well, I've learned that that's not the truth compared to working in the mountains. I've had no less than 3 semi-trucks with inexperienced kind of drivers, and rain and slopes and hills. I actually had one semi turnover on its side with all of the trusses on it for our barn. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, and the materials made it. So we've had some logistic issues, having to manually transport things up hills and taking a little longer. But I guess that kind of goes with the territory. I've learned a lot. I've learned what Southern charm is. I'm not really good at it, but I'm learning.
Awesome.
That's where we're at. So yeah, we're a little bit behind schedule, but things are starting to really move. And the second home, which will be in the Maxwell Parade of Homes, will be done in actually the first week of October. So I'm excited about that. Shall I go on?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
You're doing great.
Oh, and one comment about Nate. The specifics about the 26% IRR, only for timing logistics, because I only had a certain amount of time to do this. Later in the presentation, I get into the details, but there was a written pitch deck that did go into great details about that for people that were interested. So, one of the wonderful opportunities that we have at Moody Moon Ridge, because of the land size that we have, is I'm able to provide a beautiful land building mix on our land to create some really unique opportunities. It'll be 13 single-family homes at 3,100, a little over 3,150 square feet, 12 homes at 2,600, 8 townhomes for 1,200, a workout facility, and open pavilions. On this particular sheet, the only thing that's changed about it is I've added a beautiful community building, which will contain our workout facility. So Moody Moon Ridge is a really unique piece of property. I'll get into it on the next slide. I believe it's the next. Yes. This is actually a picture of Moody Moon Ridge that was, I took, the realtor took this the summer right before I bought it. The fabulous location, I searched for this property for quite some time, for a little over a year. I needed to be very close to Sevier County, which is home to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Sevierville. We're only a mile into Cott County, and because Sevier County has been so overbuilt, especially since COVID, they're quite landlocked. But in addition, I wanted to make sure Moody Moon Ridge had the opportunity to really be connected to nature, which Sevierville was. probably up until about 10 years ago. So I found this great location, which is 12 minutes from an interstate. We're located in Cott County, obviously just minutes from Gatlinburg and Cosby. It is the trifecta of land mix. So I have open fields, I have open rolling fields, a combination of small sloped wooded areas, and then phase 2 is going to be all of our homes that are up on high on ridges, which will be absolutely magnificent views. There are 2 spring-fed creeks running through it. We have abundant wildlife all over the place, and we're still close enough to Dollywood, Gatlinburg, Sevierville, if you so chose to want to entertain the tourist attractions.
So this is a great example of a what slide. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to be 12 minutes from the interstate. And by the way, yeah, I can actually attest to all this because I drove to Pigeon Forge myself. My 2 of my kids and I did a trip from California, crossed Route 66, got off in Oklahoma, and then drove and into Tennessee. Well, not straight from Oklahoma, if you know geography. I had to Arkansas first. So I went through Arkansas, and then we drove to the Smoky Mountains. We spent a couple of days in Pigeon Forge, and then we drove from Pigeon Forge into Gatlinburg, and then into Gatlinburg into Cosby. And I'll say this: Sue's absolutely right. And then it took us no time to get back on the highway and drive down to Chattanooga. I ended up leaving that area to go down to Chattanooga. So it is very close. It does have this gorgeous view of the Smoky Mountains. And it's actually, I will say this, one thing I didn't expect, and I was very pleasantly surprised by it. And by the way, I'm not doing a sales pitch. I suppose, stating what Sue's saying here is true. One thing that surprised me was I knew that, Sue had talked about the school district in this area. And so I was very concerned that perhaps the surrounding neighborhoods around this area around the neighborhood, around Moody Moon Ridge were not that nice. Like you'd be driving through perhaps a trailer park or something in order to get into Moody Moon Ridge. Not true at all. One of the most gorgeous drives I've ever had the pleasure of doing. It looks just like this almost the entire drive, and then right outside of Moody Moon Ridge is mostly farms and wooded areas, and it's beautiful. So like all of this was a huge what. What we're going to do is we're going to be in this area of flat fields, rolling hills, high ridges, abundant wildlife. Really painted a picture.
Thank you. Here is how Moody Moon Ridge is going to solve a couple of key problems. This slide and the next slide will get into it. We have a housing shortage in the area, especially quality homes. So that is the problem that we're encountering. Massive home scarcity. There's a 2-year backlog of current home needs. Tennessee has the largest influx of residents, and neighboring communities are landlocked. I previously touched on Gatlinburg and Sevierville. They currently have implemented some very restrictive building codes and things like that. So I was correct about that. They just couldn't build much longer. The closest community to Moody Moon Ridge is Cobley Knob. They are 100% landlocked. There is nothing left for them to build, and which I modeled a little bit after. So Moody Moon Ridge provides an opportunity for those people looking for a more luxury home, detail-oriented, connected to nature. We're offering that opportunity where one doesn't necessarily exist. So at that time, I thought we would have 2 Chicago-based crews. It's a little more than that. Cott County, again, is unrestricted. So it gives us the opportunity to start construction early. I did not have to submit a PUD for anyone that doesn't know. So it's a planned urban development. Everything, as long as homes are on 5.01 acres or larger in Cott County, you are unrestricted and you are not required to acquire building codes. So wink, wink, everything on Moody Moon Ridge except for the 5 subdivided lots that were already grandfather claused. Everything is 5.02 acres or larger. That was intentional. We don't have the building requirements, and we can do immediate construction. That was a key point of why I moved into this particular county, and actually it worked out really good because we're in the path of progress right now. So God love when a hunch works out in the future.
Yeah, and this again, like to talk about the pattern, the why, what, how pattern. We've now reached a how, right? Here's our problem, and how we're going to fix that problem. Our solution is we're going to bring in 2 Chicago-based crews. We're going to be in Cobb County where it's unrestricted. We are going to have no building requirements, and we're going to start immediate construction. Those are some hows. And then, of course, Sue added to that by talking. So why, what, how, continue.
Okay, next slide. This is another what we're doing to solve a problem. Keep in mind, when I did this presentation, we were just kind of coming out of COVID. One of the largest problems that people were encountering, and it's still a problem, although a lot of people have been able to manage it, was working from home and working in a great location. And a lot of people were able to, for the first time in their lives, realize that maybe they don't need to go into an office anymore. They anticipated 87% at the time of people 87% of an increase of people will be working from their homes by 2025. I think that number might even be under predicted. So our solution is building spaces to make sure we support productivity and a healthy work environment in the mountains. Our community center offers workspaces. I'm making sure that we have the highest speed internet through Starlink for all of our homes. And we also offer spaces for people to take a hike right there, to go swimming if you wanted to, and to just honor and relax yourself while taking a break. It turns out that there is a reduction of burnout rate, 15%, if you're working in a beautiful environment, 35% reduction in stress, and 20% increased attention span, believe it or not. Although my ADD, I don't know if I know the difference. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
But so one of the things I wanted to really create at Moody Moon Ridge, or am creating, is a solution to offer people the opportunity to work from home in an environment that will give you a better, a more holistic approach to work. All right, now I go on.
Keep going. Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay.
That's another how, right? So
yes, Tennessee is the place. Tennessee is experiencing the largest influx of residents in history. Its permanent residents are coming in at 62%, with only 38% of those leaving. But more importantly, is states like Illinois, Michigan, and New York are seeing massive amounts of outboard residents, and many of those are coming to Tennessee. Subsequently, California has joined into that group. We are also seeing the largest influx of residents coming to Tennessee are those household incomes in excess of $150,000, which bodes very well for Moody Moon Ridge, because our homes are priced at a point where we would need household incomes, in excess of $150,000. That's who we cater to.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is where we're going back to. We're repeating the pattern now, right? So we finished it how, and now why? Because why? We're expanding upon point made earlier and proving that previous point with another why. Next, go ahead.
Fantastic local demand. Of course, all the sources are cited down here, but as you can see, there's a huge increase of housing prices since pretty much 2015, and the inventory has just plummeted, which of course, supply and demand, that's what's pretty much fueling a lot of the housing prices, as well as so many people coming into the area. So we've got a nice stable housing base to work on my Moody Moon Ridge project. This is, I touched on this earlier. There's a very successful competitor, Cobley Knob, in Gatlinburg, and it's just 7 miles from Moody Moon Ridge. And it's it's also on the outskirts of Gatlinburg by 10 miles. So we're on the outskirts. They have been wildly successful since the early 80s. They started developing their portion of land, and their mountain views are absolutely fantastic. Pardon me. And they're catering to the same client base as Moody Moon Ridge. Excuse me one moment.
No worries. Yeah, this is again, like, why would you want to invest here? Well, the other place didn't is completely successful. We're seeing upward trajectory. We're seeing, flights from other more expensive markets into the Tennessee market. So yeah, it makes sense. We're validating our previous points.
Okay, so that's what I have there. We are Moody Moon Ridge right here. We are close to everything. Only an hour drive to the Knoxville Airport. Excuse me, here's the Knoxville Airport. Knoxville, we're only a 50-minute drive. Gatlinburg downtown is 40 minutes. Dollywood, 45. And you can see the Smoky Mountain National Park, whitewater rafting, and the Appalachian Trails are the areas that Moody Moon Ridge really focused on because they're more nature-centric. Also, if you want to go have some fun at Asheville with their microbreweries and all of their wonderful restaurants, it's only an hour and 10 minutes, and that's with traffic. I can do it in less than an hour, to be honest with you.
I hope there's no Tennessee State Police officers. I know.
So I wanted to make sure that we were
this live streams.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, you guys, I'm getting over a bad cold. You can kind of hear it in my voice. Thank you for being patient with that little coughing outburst. This is where I talk about the deal and how it involves people. One, we're going to raise capital up to a maximum of 1.8. I talked about the deadline of May 1st of 2022. Our projected cost of land is $435. So this project is definitely bought at the right price. A horizontal is 1.45 and vertical was going to be 3.85, and that was on phase 1. The bridge loan was going to be at interest only, 8.5, with phase 1 at 3.1 million, and the loan amount for phase 2 would be 2.1. It'll be a 3-year term. Refinance will be, the project was expected to cash flow at month 8 and profits at month 12. We will refinance between months 24 and 30, and as a potential SBA loan, or we can do bank financing at that point.
Now, I do want to say this. I straight up told Sue, and we're playing, hindsight being 2020, right? Yeah. But I straight up told Sue when she told me that it was expected to cash flow at month 8 that she was dreaming.
Okay, so I have a general concept at heart. We just believe everything can happen in 3 weeks.
I went in eyes wide open knowing that she was ambitious. I deal with a lot of, in full honesty, I deal with a lot of ground up construction. I see a lot of ground up construction presentations, and I've done ground up construction myself. And I always know whatever they're telling me is I'm gonna double that at least, right? So I went into this eyes wide open. My investors went into this eyes wide open. We're like, no, we're not cash flowing at month 8, but that's cute. That's cute.
Let me
thank you for being the sound of reason, Jillian. Thank you.
And if I could jump in there kind of more stylistically.
Yeah.
With the pitch deck, it is about not necessarily the information that's in there. On this presentation, I note that there's a lot of text, but it is not as much graphically just hits you over the side of the head. And I'd like to point that out with a request. You're looking at this deal process, and what stands out more than anything is the least important factor about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. The differentiation of the colors makes it pop. And then you get to the drawings underneath it that start to fade into the background. And then you have the text that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger from 1 to 4. But I would at least generally recommend not more than a couple of bullet points per number. I'd get rid of the gray numbers entirely and just really make it stand out. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got the arrows. And just to make it really kind of pop, because a big part of the pitch deck is doing the presentation. And so you need to communicate the information, but you don't need to communicate all of the information all within the pitch deck itself. So I just wanted to jump out there and mention that.
Completely agree.
So too many words is what you're saying.
Too many words and not enough pop.
All right.
What brings your eyes to the capital raise? What brings your eyes towards the costs, the financing strategies?
Okay.
Less information, more eye-popping.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
This is the offering summary. The offering is offered to accredited investors only. I have to say, for legal reasons, the achievement of certain results or expectations contained in this presentation are not guaranteed. Quite simply, the capital raise, we intend to raise up to $1.8 million. The investment structure is the company has 1,800 preferred units available for $1,000 each. The minimum investment is $50,000 with a maximum of $500,000. The preferred structure is 70-30 preferred common until full capital return, then 30-70 with a 3 to 4 year investment life. Anticipated returns at 18 months are expected at 18 months with a 9-month preferred return, and the capital refund between 14 and 18. Quarterly distributions after that. I'm going to guess you're going to say too many words again, Nate.
Well, that's obvious.
Okay.
What I would recommend, and it goes back to one of my earlier comments of the return ranges and the claims. It's really important, but you can take most of this wording, throw it on a single page of assumptions, structure, comments, where you do have one page of kind of the heavy lifting of all the language, and shrink this down to capital raise, anticipated returns. And for the anticipated returns, I like there to be kind of a range in there in terms of, if things go great, 26%. Okay, still expecting around a 16%. And if things don't go well, what does that look like as well? So I do like there to be more of an expectation and a range of returns, rather than saying, and please accept my ignorance of not jumping into it, but I would guess that the 26% IRR is pretty high on the range of what you're expecting. And you don't want to, again, underperform, over promise, or whatever that is, if I messed it up. And so building more of a range of expectations can definitely help in terms of how you're presenting it. And for everybody that is listening, you will be doing, as part of your marketing, webinars and presentations and putting together these funnels. So what we're going through now, it is in part the sales part of talking to somebody and what you're selling, but also more rounded of putting together a webinar, putting together that seminar, and then you're driving the traffic to help them, the advertising side, to help the audience understand more about what you're actually doing, and then getting them onto your list, and then everything else that we talk about as well.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the original, and by the way, just as a disclosure to everybody, Sue was unable to recover the original
Yeah.
presentation that she gave, and she recreated this. And if I remember correctly, you had a lot more pictures of the area in the original presentation. I might be wrong about that, but that was something that struck me. Also, I felt like this slide and the previous slide were somehow combined in the last presentation, which is what to echo basically what Nate is saying, is I would recommend that. Like, I don't think you need to say what was said in the previous slide and in this side as well, because what you're going to have people do by this point, everybody, where we are right now in this presentation, this should just be a nice little cherry on the top. We're going to raise 1.8 million. You can get in for $550,000. You can get in for as little as $50,000. What you can expect is a preferred return of about 9% in quarterly distribution, paid in quarterly distributions, with an overall return of between 16 and 26% IRR. And leave it at that. It doesn't need to be repeated. Perhaps people are going to have questions and want explanation. But yes, I agree with Nate. Okay, let's keep going. Sue, let's see how you wrap this up.
Really quick, there was one slide that I do believe I lost that was in between here that did address worst case scenario, best case scenario, and something in the middle. So it was in there, and I did lose the presentation. Thank you, Jillian. Anyways, there's 3 opportunities that would also more positively impact the results of Moody Moon Ridge. I did find 5 subdivided lots on there, which is fabulous. The first model home is on there. There's a new bypass that's under construction that will connect Interstate 40 to Sevierville. By the way, that is going under construction. And the property would be eligible for cost segregation, reducing our tax burden, therefore increasing some profits.
So I want to back up for 1 second.
Sure.
I would put this slide, if everybody, like, there's 3 opportunities that are going to make this even better before the reveal of the returns and what the investor needs to do, as well as the next slide. So if you want to go to the next slide as well, which is right here.
I just wanted to, I'm introducing myself, a history about myself, a builder at 20 plus years. Josh Osmer, although he's not an investor in the project, he's the lead construction manager. He's a fabulous builder and developer, custom home, very high end, and he has done many ground up developments. He's part of the team. And then here's I called out specifically who the accountant will be for full transparency.
Yeah, and something, a thing I want to talk about this particular slide. I've gone to so many presentations, whether investor presentations or sales presentations, where people start off telling me how amazing they are. And the thing is I don't care. And no one cares. They don't care until they know what's in it for them. And then again, these are like, and you are really kind of solidifying why Sue can be trusted. But if Sue started off with this information here, there's almost immediate shutdown, because no one wants to hear somebody talk about themselves, particularly when they first meet. So always talk about your team and who you are, those more finer details that convince people at the end. Otherwise, I mean, even if you're saying something like, I went to Harvard, or I went to Yale, or whatever, like whatever big brag that you have, you want the big brag to back up the project, not the other way around, not the project to back up your big brag. So I'm not saying you to like downplay who you are or what you're capable of, but more to save that for the end, to kind of solidify, to get people to trust you a little more. They're not going to trust you prior to hearing why they should trust the project. or why they should trust the company, or why they should trust the business plan, or why, if you're selling something, why they should trust the product that they're, or service that they're buying. This only goes to help that. So yeah, I love the fact that this is at the end. Okay.
Thanks, Jillian. The last one is my disclaimer. I have to put that in there.
This is not your disclaimer at the end in the last. I remember your disclaimer, your slide at the on the presentation I went to was actually a really beautiful It wasn't an animation. It was like a short little, almost, I wouldn't say film, but like it was almost like a little film or an animation. It wasn't an animation though. It was an actual,
It was a presentation, and that's it does a beautiful presentation, but the original is gone, so I actually had to recreate it stagnant. So we lost a lot of the beauty of it. I apologize, guys. I took hours and endless hours making this beautiful animated, fully movie presentation, and it's gone.
But let's talk about that for a second. I want to also talk about, I gave you a formula of why, what, how, and now if you guys have any questions, now is the time to put them in the comments, please, because we'll answer them. But I want to talk about the why, what, how. So let me give you that pattern one more time, and then I'm going to also give you some other things to consider. Why? Why are we investing? What are we investing in? How are we going to do it? Repeat that pattern, and then you get to the what if. What if you could be involved? Here's what's in it for you. Then what the investor needs to do. And something that's missing here is what it's in for you for good reason, because they're not actually, Sue's not looking necessarily for investment. Although if you want to talk to her about investing, you contact her. This is not the place for it. But that would be that call to action. And if you're talking about buying a house, or if you're talking about buying a product or selling a service, you have to tell the end buyer, consumer, investor what it is that they need to do. If you don't give them a call to action, then you're not helping yourself. And so if we look at this in another context of how the mind works, there are 3 points in a presentation where the buyer, the audience is really listening. It's called the primacy effect and the recency effect. Two anchors, right? The primacy effect is the first thing they hear. The recency effect is the last thing they hear. So they're going to really remember those two things. And then there's one thing in the middle that's a von Restorff effect. And the von Restorff effect is something that like really stands out, that like really makes them like go, oh, yeah, that ties everything together. Throughout the presentation too, what you want to be doing is be making connections to the person and why this is important to them. And I think all those points about Tennessee and where people are coming from is really going to speak to the audience of potential investors in this regard, and also of home buyers in another regard. Like, you're leaving California, you're leaving New York, you're leaving New Jersey, you're leaving Illinois. Come to Tennessee and let me show you where you can connect with nature while working from home. These are things that the audience can relate to, and you want to make those connections throughout your presentation. So I'm going to repeat these two things, and then if anybody has any questions, we'll take those. It's why, what, how, what if, and then what, your call to action. Or another way to look at it is primacy effect, the first thing that's said. A von Restorff, a story in the middle that is relatable, that gives that aha moment, and then finally a recency. And the recency in everybody's regard here should be that call to action, whatever it is you want the audience to do. All right, Nate, I see you back, so I want to hear what you have to say.
No. I was just mentioning to everybody, these disclaimers, it's so unbelievably important to include with especially any investment marketing materials that get sent out. If you are not marketing for investors, always run your marketing plans, at least by an attorney, to make sure that you have those proper guardrails to make sure that you are protected. And if anybody literally just wants a copy of, here's some disclaimer language for investments. Kennedy, if you don't mind, throw my email in chat and just note in there, if you're looking for some disclaimer language, just shoot me an email. Happy to provide it. And unlike, the attorneys that are happy everywhere, not going to bill you anything. It's just want to be helpful.
That's awesome. That's great.
I'll go back to the pretty first slide. There we go.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great job, Sue. Again, not as visually stunning as the original presentation,
Yes.
but we are at least able to give people, hey, this is how you need to do a presentation. And another thing I want you guys to notice is that this presentation was short. It was made longer by yours truly, right? A good presentation is under 20 minutes. If you can't get your messaging out in 20 minutes, then you're doing something wrong. So your presentation should really be under 20 minutes, and that's it. A TED Talk, average TED Talk is 17 minutes. So I like to use that as a rule of thumb.
And just to build out what your funnel ends up looking like is you can be driving traffic directly to this as a webinar so that you're not repeating it online over and over and over.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so you're providing that information. Most people that we work with on the investment side do have investor portals that these get pointed towards. However, if you're marketing other things, great. It may go to that order form. It may go to that, schedule a consultation for more information. But this is to help weed out a lot of that looky-loo, just, hey, I'm looking for information, but I'm not an actual buyer. You do want to have as big of a funnel as possible. Have your newsletter going, you have your ads going, you have your email blast going. They're all going to here. And you want as many people to be showing up as possible. But who gets past that webinar? You want them to be real buyers. Yeah. And that's who you should be spending your time and attention with.
Oh, I think we have we did a live stream on avatars. So remember, figure out your avatar first so you're not casting this wide net for the wrong person.
There you go. So we only have a couple of minutes. Sue, do you have any final thoughts that you'd love to share with everybody?
One, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure to represent my presentation. If anybody has any questions, you can go to, I think you already linked it there, moodymoonridge.com. Couple of things is, I wish I had known more about marketing. A lot of it I learned later, after my presentations and stuff like that. So listen to Jillian and Nate, everybody. They'll save you some time. I'll tell you that much. That's really all I have. I don't know what else other than to thank you for having me be a part of your wonderful show today.
Thank you, Sue. Jillian, final thoughts, and then we get to do the Egyptian walk out.
Everybody, please keep us subscribed to this channel. If you liked this video, press that like button. If you want to get updates on all things entrepreneur and be part of these live streams and get your questions answered live for free, then you need to subscribe and be here at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays. And with that, we're very much looking forward to helping you build your business.
That's what we're here for, and it's just to help our fellow entrepreneurs try to take their business to that next level.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.